Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Mindset Monday. I'm pumped for us moving into the season that I like to call the practice season. So if you haven't caught up or you've missed some of the old episodes over the last several weeks, this season is a season that we attack. We don't hold back. We are actively pursuing our outreach. We're actively pursuing, of course, our strategy and refining it during this period of time. We all know that recruiters continue to recruit all the way up to Christmas. And what I'm really excited to be able to report that over 50% of our current members are all in some form of a stage of interviews, and some of them are even looking at the tail end. They could possibly have offers before we get to Christmas. Now, that's not unheard of inside of our world, but it is extremely encouraging to see that the system and the process continues to work. So what did the next couple of weeks look like for you if maybe you're just getting to know us, maybe you're just getting things started, or maybe you just really want to build out a plan so that you can be successful January and February and get caught up from what everybody else has already been working on? Well, that's what this season is all called. This is the practice season. We've really got about 2 strong weeks left before we get into, say, Christmas and then, of course, New Year's. And that is a really good amount of time for us to analyze our strategy and lean in where we need to be. Now, the important part about this for us as job seekers is that we want to build upon the foundation of success. And for us, you're here on Mindset Monday. You've already taken the right first step. It's about getting the right mindset in place for you so you can execute not just well, but you can really start to understand how the practice that we're going to work on today is going to be focused in on building that foundation around the right focus on connecting yourself not just to the right strategy, but also to move yourself forward and remove barriers. Okay. So before I get too much into the tactical side of things, I want to make sure that we understand how we're going to work on practicing our storytelling. We're going to work on our mock interviews. We're going to work on ideas of how our elevator pitch really, truly works. And we're going to do that through tightening our communication. Now, by doing that and doing it well, we're going to set ourselves up to be able to be tactical, yes, but underneath it all, we want to have a root understanding of what the system is that allows us to be tactical through the rest of this week. Because communication is really downstream of actual mindset. So I'm reminded of a parable, and I was talking with a very good friend a couple of weeks ago, and I was trying to really think through what I wanted to share leaning into this practice season. And this is a good friend, mentor of mine that reminded me of a story that I told him that was an unlock of his several years ago. And it was this parable of 2 dogs. Now, I went back and started to go through some of my old notes and some of the things that we were discussing as we were on the phone. And then he said the exact moment that really hit me. He said, no, it's all about understanding how you feed the right dog. And I said, oh, that was it. And so I want to share that with you today. So the parable is this. It's a story of an owner who has these 2 dogs. One's a white dog and one is a black dog. And these 2 dogs are in this constant battle with each other. It's a constant battle of attention. It's a constant battle of success and winning. And the owner was asked by all the local groups, because everyone enjoyed watching these dogs, of course, be able to battle. And they asked, well, which dog always wins? When you're watching them at home, which dog wins? And the owner's answer was so simplistic. He said, whichever one I feed. And in the moment when all of this rushed back over me, I started to think about job seekers and how often we lean in so heavily and we focus so heavily on understanding the foundation of the right mindset of what are we recognizing those wins? And so when I tell you this about which dog are you feeding, I want you to think of it in this way. Your thoughts are the exact same concept of the dog. Are you feeding fear, which means you freeze? Do you feed your confidence, which causes you to act and take action? Do you feed your doubt, thus you hesitate? Are you feeding clarity? And that means you communicate better. This isn't all just motivational fluff. This is truly actually neuroscience. If you guys know me, you know that I research absolutely everything, and I lean into the hardcore truth about where these things come from a neurological way, a scientific level, and of course a chemical way. And so when I was leaning in on some different research of this, I found, of course, the concept of Hebbian learning, which is really that neurons that fire together wire together. And that really took me to an idea of saying, okay, well, that's great. I understand that I get it. If we're feeding those positive thoughts, what's that really look like? But it's hard to do that when you're under so much stress. I can think of several individuals over the past week that I've really leaned into, that I've really been communicating with, that are in our community right now, and they are feeling it. I mean, financial stress, there's obviously health ramifications from that. There's some folks around them that are ill, and then there's the pressures of the season. So I said, okay, I want to dive deeper into this. I want to go further. And I started doing some additional research, and I ran into a Nature's Review Neuroscience study, which was done in 2022 as well. And that one really found that the whatever you really put your attention on, it will amplify the neural representation of whatever you focus on. So in other words, let me say it again. That means feeding negative internal narratives, give them the weight and the power. So the exact opposite, of course, is totally true. If you focus in on the victories, again, the 3 wins, and you can find how those 3 wins tie back to your strategy and can tie back then to the domino effect of what you're doing well every single day and building towards the right result, right? Then you take the power back. Now, what that really led me to even further was a study that I've actually mentioned before. If you guys have gone back, I think it was in even Mindset episode 2, where I leaned into a Stanford study. And it's really around just a total mindset deep dive, right? And that study really showed that individuals with an empowerment or growth mindset improve performance in those pressure scenarios significantly more than those with a fixed mindset. So whatever you mentally rehearse will eventually show up in your communication, your presence, your interviews, and most importantly, your follow-through. So as I wanted to then connect this for you guys into what this means from a practice week perspective. So now we know the data, we understand the science, we understand why we do the things we do and how it can affect us. Then what does that mean for us as we really start to lean into taking real action? So whether it is you're thinking of your strategy, whether it is you're looking at your mock interviews, your elevator pitches, or your just communication in general, it's extremely important that you first understand which dog are you feeding, right? So how do you recognize that? Maybe you're thinking of, man, that interview wasn't great for me, right? Well, why? Did you feed the fear? In other words, did you ramble a little bit? Maybe you were feeding your self-doubt. Maybe you weren't confident, right? So did your pitches come across maybe as a little bit small? Maybe you felt insecure, and so you fed that insecurity. And that means your voice might have been shaky in certain moments, or maybe you even shrunk your answers and you didn't realize just how powerful you truly were and how powerful that moment was. Did you avoid the big opportunity to ask that powerful question? And if that's the case, then how do we reverse that? How do we switch so that you can feed confidence? Well, that's simple. It's about repetition, preparation, and practice, right? That will allow you to show up differently. That'll make you more grounded, more concise, and most importantly, more controlled. And just so you understand why that's so important, if you don't have that 9 to 3 routine for yourself, or designed your own routine to make you effective, right, then you're going to put yourself at a disadvantage. However, when you do practice some of these things, particularly as a job seeker, and this is so important, I think, when we get to talking about, do I need to do one-on-ones? And one-on-ones do not mean always with Tina and I. We're available for you. We're more than happy to do that. But that's what the community's for. Have you found someone you can go practice with? Because let me tell you why. When you mock interview, your success rate goes up by 36%. Just practicing a mock interview with basic questions. 36% improvement. If you rehearse your elevator pitch, and this is why Tina and I really stress this one. If you just rehearse it 3 to 5 times, you increase your percentage chance of having clarity and being able to recall why you're so great by 50%. That means confidence absolutely skyrockets from there. That study's also been shared with you guys in the past. That's a Harvard Business Review study. And then what does all this do for you, right? Like when you practice, when you work through these things, what does this do to relieve for you? And one of the biggest reasons why individuals struggle in the interview process is they have anxiety. It's no different than anxiety from public speaking. It's no different than anxiety for the first time you go out on a date again. No matter where that anxiety comes from, it's all about practice. Because if you actually practice these things enough and you're confident in what you're saying and you've built the right system for yourself, anxiety decreases by 30% instantaneously. So walking in and being prepared, being practiced, and being well-defined instantaneously moves you forward. So let's get back to some tactical pieces here. What are the things that we should do? And there's several of them. So before I really want you to go and practice your words, you should practice with your thoughts. Before you rehearse your pitch, you should rehearse truly understanding who you are and what you're trying to accomplish. Before you strengthen then your communication, you strengthen your belief in what you're saying. And I want you to really take a step back, and we teach obviously reflection, discovery, and execution because this is so important. If you don't take the pause and reflect, then it's really hard for you to analyze, discover what needs to be done. That would be the execution moment, the action taken. So it's important for you to first ask it, have I been feeding the right dog? Am I staying focused on fear, frustration, maybe even hopelessness? That's natural to have that. But the idea behind that is all of those are emotions, and we have to pause when we feel those. You have to reflect on those emotions. Because if we do that, then we can understand how to go practice properly, and that's what's so important in the next couple of weeks. That is then set back on repetition, preparation, and belief. If we understand, discover where we need the support, understand, discover where we need to go, then we can then execute on the correct actions. Because once we start feeding that proper dog, then there's no chance that we can't have success. And we've seen this over and over and over again. I can't affect, obviously, exactly when you're going to get a job. But from the data and all the recordings and your own biology proves that if you do these things, you will find a job not just faster, but you'll understand yourself better. And that's what I want you to understand going forward from this meeting. We're not asking anyone to do this because it's just good to get a job. That's simple. That's basic. You can pay for that anywhere. But what we focus on here at JS Careers is we want to teach you to have principles of life that allow you to be not just the best hire, but to truly be an impact player within 90 days, but then have a skyrocketing career. We truly believe that if you do these things and you learn how to go through this really high stress environment, this really hard time right now, and you execute flawlessly in these moments, then no matter what stress that's ever put on you in the rest of your career, you can remind yourself of where you were and that what greatness you accomplished. There will be not a single task that will be harder for you in the rest of your career than the one you're facing right now. And you will overcome this. You will find this job, whether it's in 2 weeks or 2 months. You will get this done because if you stay focused and you develop yourself and you develop the right mental and emotional strengths, then you truly have executive presence. And if you have that executive presence, then you'll win. So I want you to practice your answers this week. I want you to record your pitch and listen to it. I want you to get a buddy. I want you to work on things. I want you to connect with myself and Tina if that's what you need. But the goal here is if you really truly put the fire and the training behind the emotions, then you're going to have the success because you're going to feed the right dog. You're going to strengthen the right story. And most importantly, you're going to not just walk into interviews prepared if you've got those right now in front of you, but you'll also walk into January, not panicked. You're going to walk in prepared and confident. And confidence always unlocks the door of opportunity. Always. I really appreciate you guys listening. Obviously, if this resonates with you, If you feel like you need some additional help with the strategy, or maybe even building out a plan for yourself so that you can execute some of these things. Maybe there was a moment or two as I was talking that you recognize that you need help in that one specific area. That's what we're here for. Reach out. You can find Tina and myself in the Discord. You can find us, of course, on LinkedIn. You can even message our account that you're listening to, if you're listening to after the fact from live. I know we're going to take some questions and have some conversation in a minute. But I really want to open this up to say, take action this week. Do something special, because everybody has that opportunity to do something great. But we have to first choose to feed that right dog. So I thank you guys, and I look forward to, of course, talking to everybody real soon.